We shall now go on to our next speaker, another young ophthalmologist in our team of speakers, and she specialized in vitreoretinal diseases, uveitis, and ocular immunology from Visakhapatnam. And she's going to talk on multiple evanescent white dot syndrome.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Is my screen visible now?
Yeah.
Okay, I will start then. So today I will be dealing with top 10 common curiosities, what we can think when we are naming MUDs. So that is multiple evanescent white dot syndrome. And why we are dealing this entity right now here is because it's a self-limiting disorder. And now we need to differentiate these self-limiting inflammatory disorders from those which are persistent inflammatory disorders, and we need to give them a specific and a prolonged treatment. So how can we differentiate between these two important entities? Is by the pattern recognition, imaging, and the depth of inflammation. So with these three imaging modalities, we can just go ahead and differentiate clinically as well as with the help of imaging. So now MUDs, just to start on an introductory note, it is also called the common cold of retina. It typically presents as an acute idiopathic unilateral disorder where patients present with acute diminution of vision, sudden onset. They might also present with photopsia or temporal or paracentral scotomas. It is usually seen in young myopic females in their second to fourth decades. There is no particular systemic association which is seen, but in almost 1/3 of the patients, they have a predisposing illness, like a prodromal viral illness they give the history of. Now, classically, patient on fundus examination, what will we see? Though there are multiple gray, white, dot-like lesions which you can see at the posterior pole and mid-periphery, especially around the optic nerve head and macula. As well as at the fovea, you can see a granularity. So this is what it classically looks like. Now, as the name suggests, multiple evanescent white dot syndrome. So what is the size and shape of the lesions, what we see in MUDs? Now in MUDs, there are multiple, as I told you, discrete white dot-like lesions which are there at the level of the outer retina and retinal pigment epithelium. So we have size and shape. The size is, they are very small, from 100 to 200 microns is their range. So it is very easy to miss them. And clinically, they appear as gray-white dots. So this is about their size and shape. In contrast, if we see APM-PPE, they are cream-colored plecoid lesions. So here they were white dot, but in APM-PPE, these are cream-colored plecoid lesions. And if we compare their sizes, they were just 100 to 200 microns in MUDs, but they are more than 0.5 disc diameter in APM-PPE. So very difficult to miss the lesions in APM-PPE in contrast to MUDs. Now, once we have seen their size and shape, these white dot lesions, so are these white dot lesions characteristic of MUDs? Because the name itself suggests white dot syndrome. So in some of the patients, we might not be able to appreciate these white dots. Either they are not appreciated clinically because they are so small, or they might not have resolved till the patient presents to us, because I told it's a self-limiting disease. Or sometimes in atypical MUDs, these white dot lesions might not be there. So now the name suggests multiple evanescent white dot syndrome, but sometimes these white dots might not be there. So now this feature can't be characteristic of MUDs. So then what is the hallmark feature for diagnosis of MUDs clinically? So it's the presence of foveal granularity, which is there, which will be the characteristic feature for MUDs. So now based on presence or absence of these white dots, multiple evanescent white dot syndrome is classified into typical and atypical. What are the other atypical features of MUDs? As I told you, sometimes foveal granularity might be the only presenting symptoms. It can be bilateral. It might just present with disc edema, or the lesions can be a little larger than what characteristically are. So, or it can be that sometimes overlapping features are there with other white dot syndromes or the Azure complex, like MUDs presenting along with multifocal choroiditis, acute macular neuroretinopathy, or APM-PPE itself. Now we saw the typical and the atypical clinical features of MUDs. Let's move on to the imaging. What are the characteristic FFA features of MUDs, and why do we see a particular pattern in it? So usually in inflammatory disorders, what we see is that initially there will be a hypofluorescence, and following that in the late phases, we see hyperfluorescence. But that is not the case with MUDs. In MUDs, corresponding to the white dots, what we saw clinically, there will be early hyperfluorescence, which will be there, and there will be late staining. Now there is a characteristic early hyperfluorescence which is there. Now it is in form of dots and spots. So dots, they are overlying the spots. Dots are little smaller and they are usually seen in the nasal macula or peripapillary area, while spots, they're a little deeper and they extend till the mid-periphery. So these dots, they overlie the spots and give a characteristic wreath-like pattern. So any white dot syndrome you are seeing, which has early wreath-like hyperfluorescence and late staining on FFA, it is multiple evanescent white dot syndrome. Now I have explained so many times wreath-like pattern, wreath-like pattern. So why is this wreath-like pattern seen on FFA? Now there have been two explanations given to it. So as I told you, it usually involves the outer retina. So now there can be retinal microcirculation which gets affected. So there is dilation of retinal microcirculation. So the middle and the deeper retinal microcapillaries cause the hyperfluorescence, as well as now in inflammation, as we know, the microglia, they have a stellate configuration. So in this inflammation, there is excitation of the microglia, which are extending vertically, as well as each microglia, they are interacting with each other also. So this stellate configuration of microglia corresponds to the wreath-like pattern what we see on fluorescein angiography. Now we saw these dots and spots in nasal macula surrounding the optic nerve head, which can extend to the mid-periphery. What about the fovea? Are there any foveal changes on fluorescein angiography in mutes? We saw clinically there was foveal granularity which is there. Now in inflammatory disorders, sometimes we can see cystoid macular edema clinically, but sometimes when we are not able to appreciate cystoid macular edema clinically, still we can have angiographic evidence of cystoid macular edema. But that is not the case in mutes. In mutes, cystoid macular edema and perifoveal leakage does not happen, especially in the typical cases, but we can see disc leakage. Now, once we have seen that fluorescein angiography, we see wreath-like pattern dots and spots, but these dots and spots correspond to what we were seeing the dots clinically. So which is the test which conveys the extensive involvement of retina in mutes? So it is not FFA. As I told you, the lesions will be corresponding to what we are seeing clinically. On ICG angiography, the hyposenescent areas, what will be noticed, they will outnumber what we saw clinically as white dots. But electroretinogram, it shows extensive outer and inner retinal dysfunction more than what is conveyed by our fluorescein and ICG angiography. So what do we see on our ERG? It's a reduced A wave amplitude in the early stage itself, as well as the reduced oscillatory potential. So we saw fluorescein angiography, ICG angiography, ERG. Now let's move on to visual field changes. Are there any visual field changes in mutes? Because most of our lesions are confined to the optic nerve at peripapillary area. So as you can see here, there is an enlarged blind spot, what we classically find in mutes. So why is it there? As the ICG angiography was showing that the maximum hyposenescence is around the peripapillary, it is because of those peripapillary lesions which are there, and there is a predilection of inflammation in mutes to the peripapillary circulation. And it is because of the plentiful sources of ciliary arteries which are communicating directly with the retinal circulation. So on visual field, we are seeing an enlarged blind spot. What are the other disorders where we can see an enlarged blind spot in retina, especially in inflammatory disorders? It is acute idiopathic blind spot enlargement syndrome, mutes as we have seen, acute macular neuroretinopathy, multifocal choroiditis, and azul. So these are the other disorders in the retina where the patient can present with an enlarged blind spot. So DDs of enlarged blind spot. So now we saw typical and atypical features, we saw imaging. Now let's move on to treatment. Is there a treatment or is it required? First of all, let's see what is the natural history of mutes. So there is spontaneous recovery of visual function, normalization of electroretinogram, as well as reversal of the ophthalmoscopic or the clinical and the FFA findings in 2 to 10 weeks, especially by 6 to 10 weeks, it completely resolves. So there is no treatment which is required because it's a self-limiting disease. As the name suggests, evanescent, why are the lesions in mutes evanescent? Okay, so on OCT, what we see that the lesions, the white dots and spots, they are at the outer retina. So now in the outer retina also, the disorder is usually centered to the ellipsoid zone and to some extent in the interdigitation zone. So the outer segments get affected, but there is intact photoreceptor cell bodies which are there. Only when there is damage to the cell bodies, then it becomes irreversible. But here, the cell bodies are intact. So there is complete reversible lesions, what we see clinically. Now, sometimes it can happen, as I told you, that lesions will automatically resolve in 6 to 10 weeks. When you're following up the patient, the lesions might not resolve. Or then you see that new lesions have appeared in mutes. What to think of? Because it was a self-limiting disease. Now, if new lesions appear or they don't show improvement, then you have to think of an alternative diagnosis. That is what Dr. Prabjot has already explained in detail: diffuse unilateral subacute neuroretinitis. What we saw, the outer retinal crops, which will be there, which can mimic as white dots, especially when you can't clinically see the worm. But here, fluorescein angiography will help you. As we saw in mutes, there will be early hyperfluorescence, but in DUSN, there will be early hypofluorescence, but late staining will be there in both. So the early phases will try to help you differentiate between the mutes and the DUSN lesion. So we saw typical atypical features, the imaging, the natural history, and the DD, the important DD. So let's revise what we saw in mutes today. Clinically, the hallmark feature is foveal granularity and not the white dots. White dots and spots, they are 100 to 200 microns, which might be easily missed. There can be a hyperemic disc, and secondly, vitreous and choroid might be involved. If we see the autofluorescence in the initial phase, there is initial stage of the disease, the lesions are hyperautofluorescent and slowly become hypoautofluorescent. Visual field will show an enlarged blind spot, and we saw the DDs of enlarged blind spot also. FFA has a characteristic wreath-like pattern, and this is the only inflammatory disorder where initial hyperfluorescence in wreath-like pattern followed by late staining will be there. On OCT, because the cell bodies are not involved, there will be only ellipsoid band disruption which will be there. And at the fovea, because of the accumulation of the photoreceptors, there can be little bit hyperreflectivity, what we can see subfoveally. So this was the clinical and imaging modality, which leads to help us in differentiating the white dot syndrome, especially mutes from other white dot syndromes. Thank you.
That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
True teacher you are. So,
one question I have, Dr. Megha, it was a wonderful presentation. Now, if we looked into the octa features of these, the mutes, that is the choriocapillaritis.
Yeah.
So usually we see this void areas, basically when there are the precapillaries are involved.
Yes.
In the octa, but whereas in mute you don't see those kind of thing because it's the end capillaries which are involved in that. So is there any specific octa features for the mutes?
So if we see mutes, typically it does not involve the vitreous and the choroid. Very rarely, secondly, the vitreous and the choroid can get involved. So on octa, we will not find much of the changes which, like you asked for, any particular sign. Only in atypical mutes, we can have those void areas, but that is not what is characteristic of mutes.
ICG is a good adjunct to find out the mutes. ICG. So yes. Now we have got ICG with us. So if you suspect mutes, I would suggest that get along with the FFA, do the ICG.
Sure, sir.
Anything else to add before we go on to our last speaker? Dr. Avinash?
I think she covered overall.
Yeah. Dr. Ratna?
Nice presentation.
No, it was a fantastic presentation.
Yeah, truly.